Hey everyone, this is Laura from TheRealLauraB here on YouTube and also on Twitter. I am back with Johnny Depp and Jeff Beck just filing their declaratory relief lawsuit against the man who's claiming they stole lyrics. So I thought I'd start with the article where we found out about it with the Rolling Stones, and then I have their court document. So everyone hang on, and here we go.
Hi, I'm Laura, also known as TheRealLauraB from Twitter, and now here on YouTube. I'm a researcher, new wave internet media, and commentator. I'm not a lawyer nor offering any legal advice. Join me on a journey to review the world of celebrity lawsuits and current events. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back. And I need to ask you all a favor. If you could please like this video, if you're inclined to share it. If you comment, I try and answer comments. We're having a terrible time with the analytics. It seems Popcorn Planet's having the same problem. Tug and many others that are reporting on Johnny Depp seem to be pushed down to the bottom somehow, suppressed. And the way we can do that is to work on YouTube's analytics, and that's the liking and all that. So I really appreciate your help on that. Today's a quick one. It's Saturday morning, and I wanted to jump on because this just got filed last night to give you a little history and now what Johnny Depp and Jeff Beck are doing. So I think the best way to start is where we all found out about it first was with the article from the Rolling Stones. Johnny Depp, Jeff Beck accused of stealing lyrics from incarcerated man's poem. And this came back August 4th. So this has been going on for a while. Depp and Beck's sad MF parade, because YouTube might get mad at me, appears to share numerous lines with Hobo Ben, a toast performed by Slim Wilson and recorded by esteemed folklorist Bruce Jackson in the mid-60s. Slim Wilson lived a hell of a life, a tramp in the classic sense. He hopped trains and traveled the country, picking up all manner of scars from bullets and knives along the way. For money, he did odd jobs and threw dice, but Slim proudly proclaimed he wasn't a gambler. He was a cheat. He was also a pimp, did time for murder, and was in Missouri State Penitentiary for armed robbery when he met the folklorist Bruce Jackson in 1964. So he's a liar and a cheat. On top of all that, Slim was, to Jackson's ears, one of the best narrators of poetry and toasts he ever heard. During their time together, Slim shared stories from his life and several toasts, a wildly outlandish, funny, ribald form of narrated black folk poetry with Jackson. A decade later, Slim featured heavily in Jackson's 1974 book about toasts, Get Your A in the Water and Swim Like Me. YouTube. You can hear him exhibiting his craft on the 1976 corresponding album of the same name. In his heavy Arkansas drawl, Slim sounds at once unbothered and delighted as he peels off uncouth line after line, that lackadaisical nature ceding to bites of excitement as he approaches a bawdy punchline. In one toast, Hobo Ben, which you can hear below, I can't file it, it's now not here anymore. The titular tramp walks into a party and asks the host, ladies of culture and beauty so refined, is there one among you that would grant me wine? I'm raggedy, I know, but I have no stink, and God bless the lady that'll buy me a drink. Heavy-hipped Hattie turned to Nadine with a laugh and said, what that funky MF really need, child, is a bath. These are about as tame as the toast gets. Nearly 60 years after Jackson recorded Slim, Hobo Ben appears to have been found some new fans in Johnny Depp and Jeff Beck. Though you wouldn't know it as things stand, their song Sad MF Parade off their new album 18 appears to pull numerous lines from Hobo Ben, including one that ostensibly gives the song as titled, you better try to keep your A in the corner of shade, because if the man come, you make a sad MF parade. Some of the lines quoted above, I'm raggedy, I know, but I have no stink. God bless the lady that'll buy me a drink, and what that funky MF really needs, child, is a bath, also appear on the Sad MF Parade on the album 18. Sad MF Parade is credited to Beck and Depp. There is no mention of Slim Wilson, Bruce Jackson, or Get Your A in the Water and Swim Like Me. The only two lines I could find in the whole piece that Depp and Beck contributed are big time MF and bust it down to my level, Jackson claims. Everything else is from Slim's performance in my book. I've never encountered anything like this. I've been publishing stuff for 50 years, and this is the first time anybody has just ripped something off and put his own name on it. There's more to come. Slim is, it should be noted, is a pseudonym. Jackson gave aliases to all the incarcerated people he spoke to make sure they didn't get in trouble with their wardens. Jackson, now a distinguished professor at University of Buffalo, says Slim's real name was either Willie or Willie Davis. Using the information available, Rolling Stone tried to track down the additional information about Davis, who was in his 50s when Jackson met him in 1964, but was unsuccessful. A rep for Depp's album did not immediately return Rolling Stone's quest for comment. But I think there was some interesting comments on Twitter saying, like, gee, if someone sings a hymn or a psalm, how did they credit it? Especially people who have used it in, say, Christmas music and whatnot, and so many variations. So anyway, let's go on with this. So Johnny and Jeff and Jeff's music label from UK, Deuce Music, has filed in New York City in the Southern District, I think it is, Central District, against Bruce Jackson. This is a declaratory judgment action rising out under the copyright laws of the United States, Title 17 of the United States Code. So they want the judge to decide. Plaintiffs seek a declaratory judgment of non-infringement of alleged copyrights asserted against them by defendant as part of the old-fashioned shakedown. The assertion centers around a poem or a toast entitled Hobo Ben, which is part of an oral tradition passed down for generations and performed by an unidentified individual referred as Slim Wilson. Slim Wilson's oral recitation of Hobo Ben was copied and described by defendant in his book entitled Get Your A in the Water and Swim Like Me, recorded by defendant and included in a companion LP and CD. Now remember, even Rolling Stone said they tried to figure out who this guy is. The Hobo Ben work has been publicly referred, this is in the footnote, referred to alternative as a poem or a toast. For purposes of consistency, it will be referred to as a toast throughout the complaint. Defendant has asserted that plaintiffs have infringed defendant's alleged copyrights by way of a song entitled Sad MF Parade, SMP. I can say that. Performed and recorded by Misters Depp and Beck. Plaintiffs, however, have not copied or misappropriated any material in which defendants own copyrights. In fact, defendant does not own any copyright in the Hobo Ben toast, which he merely copied and transcribed, has been publicly available for years, consists of the work of unidentified others, and for which any rights that do exist have never been assigned to defendant. As a result, plaintiffs further seek a declaratory judgment that the defendant does not own any alleged copyrights in the Hobo Ben toast, and the work at issue is in the public domain. Defendant has created an actual, substantial, and immediate controversy by threatening litigation over alleged copyright infringement and by demanding that the plaintiff cease and desist in lawful behavior. So the defendant's already created a controversy. Defendant's threats have created an actual, substantial, and immediate controversy over the alleged copyrights, and plaintiffs seek judicial declarations confirming their conduct in lawful and appropriate. We see these same sayings with the insurance lawsuits involving Amber Heard. They're saying the same thing. They're asking for declaratory judgment that an immediate controversy threatening litigation is happening. So it's the same idea. Parties are John Depp, Jeff Beck, Deuce Music, which is in the UK. Upon information belief, defendant Bruce Jackson is a resident of the state of New York. This action arises out of the United States Copyright Act. The court has original jurisdiction over the subject matter. Plaintiffs are informed and believed, and on this basis allege that this court has personal jurisdiction over defendant because defendant resides in the state of New York, and this judicial district conducts business with the state of New York. This judicial district defendant has caused his books and recordings to be advertised, promoted, and sold in the state of New York. And this judicial district and defendant has sufficient minimum contacts with the state of New York through his business and activities offered or conducted in the state of New York, such as the maintenance of this suit does not offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Venue is proper in this district, and because plaintiffs conduct business, have customers, and have performed within the state of New York and this judicial district, defendant resides and conducts business within the state of New York and this judicial district, and defendant has caused his books and recordings to be advertised, promoted, and sold to consumers in the state of New York. And I think the article said he was a professor at Buffalo, which is in New York. So now we're going to get to the SMP song, and they're saying this so not to upset the judge reading this, I am sure. Plaintiff, Mr. Depp is a renowned American actor who has appeared and starred in countless independent blockbuster movies and television series, including Edward Scissorhands, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 21 Jump Street, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, among many others. He has received numerous accolades for his acting, including a Golden Globe Award, a Screen Actors Guild Award, 3 Academy Award nominations, and 2 BAFTA Awards. There's a lot of People Awards there, too. People's Choice Awards. Mr. Depp's talents go well beyond being one of the world's biggest film stars, though, and he is also an accomplished musician, having formed his own bands and having collaborated with some of the rock's biggest stars, music stars. Plaintiff Mr. Beck is considered one of the greatest guitarists of all time, rising to prominence with the English rock band The Yardbirds in the 1960s, before going on to record with many of the biggest music acts in the world. Named one of the most influential lead guitarists in rock music, Mr. Beck is no stranger to accolades himself, having received a Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance 6 times, a Grammy Award for Best Instrumental Pop Performance once, and having been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame not once, but twice. In 2019, Mr. Depp and Beck began collaboration musically, first with the release of a cover of John Lennon's song Isolation, and then appearing on stage together several times during music shows beginning in May 30th, 2022 in the UK. On July 15th, 2022, the duo released their first album entitled 18, which contains the SMP song. The Hobo Ben toast and defendant Jackson. The origins and creation of the Hobo Ben poem are unclear. As defendant wrote in his GYA book, by saying the toasts are poems, and this is a quote, by saying the toasts are poems from oral tradition, I mean they may have had a number of authors rather than just one. Or to put it another way, various audiences have had an opportunity to modify the points or parts they didn't much like. The process of modification may have occurred over a considerable number of years by different hands at different times. Emphasis added. This is in his book, Jackson's book. Upon information and belief, sometime in the 1960s, defendant met a federally incarcerated character pseudo-named Slim Wilson, who may have actually been named Willie or Willie Davis, who apparently shared many stories and poems from his life with the defendant. During one of the meetings in federal prison, defendant recorded Mr. Wilson reciting Hobo Ben toast. But even Mr. Wilson, whoever he may have been, was not the author of the Hobo Ben toast, as explained by the defendant in his own book. Quote, Slim hoboed as he did his father, from whom he learned this toast. So he learned it from his father. Emphasis added. Defendant also wrote about Mr. Wilson from his father. Also wrote, quote, from his father, he learned number 19, Hobo Ben, and number 32, quote, the pimp, and many other toasts. We used to sit around. We used to have parties at the house with the company there, and they used to just go backwards and forwards with them. Upon information and belief, later in 1974, defendant published the GYA book, which included a word-for-word transcription of Hobo Ben poem that defendant had purportedly heard Mr. Wilson recite. After publication of the GYA book, defendant also transcribed and recorded an LP and CDs of the same title, again copying the Hobo Ben toast word for word. What is clear about the origins and creation of the Hobo Ben toast is that it was not created or written by the defendant. What is also clear is that defendant owns no copyrights in the Hobo Ben toast, and if any copyrights do exist in it, they were never assigned or otherwise transferred to the defendant. Defendant basically accuses plaintiffs of infringement of copyrights that do not exist and or that he does not own. By letters dated August 15, 2022 and August 30th, the demand letters, defendant Jackson alleged that the defendant owns copyrights in the GYA book and subsequent recordings. Notably, defendant did not allege, nor could he, that he owned copyrights in the Hobo Ben toast itself, but only, quote, the only known authorized transcription and recording of Hobo Ben, quote. So this is important. This Bruce Jackson had already initiated some kind of legal contact with Depp and Beck and the music company by sending demand letters. So really, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure Johnny, last place he wanted to be was messed up in anything legal again, but he really has no choice. Going on, defendant further alleged in the demand letters that nearly every single word, that's a quote, in the SMP song is copied from Hobo Ben, including the title. Defendant also alleged that essentially every word and line, inflection, tonality, and rhythm in the SMP vocal track is taken from Hobo Ben. Finally, defendant alleged that plaintiff sampled his recording of the Hobo Ben toast to construct portions of the vocal track in the SMP song. Defendant mistakenly concluded that all of the foregoing constituted infringement of his copyrights. Contrary to defendant's allegation, defendant owns no copyrights in the words to the Hobo Ben toast, and his own copying of the toast into his book and subsequent recordings did not create any copyrights in those words. In fact, as part of a, quote, folklore, quote, or, quote, oral tradition, quote, apparently passed down for generations, as defendant himself explained in his GYA book, it is not clear at all that anyone owns copyrights to the words of the Hobo Ben toast. Moreover, and again contrary to defendant's allegations, plaintiffs did not sample any portions whatsoever from the recordings of Hobo Ben toast into the SMP song. In sum, plaintiffs have not infringed any of defendant's purported copyrights. Cause of action, declaratory judgment of no copyright infringement by plaintiffs. Plaintiffs re-allege, and reincorporate herein all the paragraphs above. We're used to that. This claim arises under copyright laws in the United States. There is a real and immediate, substantial, and justiciable. Sorry, guys. Go ahead, laugh at me. Controversy between plaintiffs and defendant concerning whether liquid lyrics and certain sound content of plaintiff's SMP song infringes on copyrights defendant purportedly owns or that even exist in the Hobo Ben toast. Plaintiffs face both irreparable harm and reputation, true, and financial losses if defendant files a lawsuit for copyright infringement as a result of plaintiff's creation and performance of the SMP song, or even if the defendant continues alleging that plaintiff's conduct infringes defendant's purported copyrights. And I think that's the gist here, that this is the gist that they're worried about. It is hurting their reputation. So it is very harmful. However, if it is one of these songs that's passed down generations and it's public, a part of the public domain, then they have every right to record it. And this defendant, who may never intend on suing them for copyright, is just doing interviews about his book, and it's casting terrible light on their reputation. So I think they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. We're going to have to get somebody to clear this up because our album is out there and we're performing. This controversy is amenable to specific relief through a declaration of non-infringement, which would clarify the rights and legal relations of the parties concerning the ongoing and future conduct. Defendant does not own any valid and enforceable copyrights in the Hobo Ben toast. The words of the Hobo Ben toast are not copyrightable subject matter under this copyright law. The Hobo Ben toast, as transcribed in defendant's book, and subsequent recordings are not original works of authorship because, among other reasons, the toast is a part of an oral tradition that has purportedly been passed down for generations. Defendant did not author or otherwise create the toast, and any rights in the Hobo Ben toast have never been assigned to anyone to the defendant. While there may be elements of the SMP song that mirror the words of the Hobo Ben toast, the SMP song itself is an original work of authorship and creativity by plaintiffs. The Hobo Ben toast, as transcribed in defendant's book and subsequent recordings, however, is not an original work of authorship created by defendant. Moreover, plaintiffs did not sample any sound material from defendant's recordings of the Hobo Ben toast. Even if the Hobo Ben toast was protectable by copyright in its form as passed down through generations or is copied by the defendant, it is not in either case. Defendant has not registered the Hobo Ben toast itself or any elements or portions thereof for copyright protection pursuant to the copyright statute. Further, defendant does not own any intellectual property rights, and that's what they were demanding. They wanted a cut of all the proceeds, and they wanted credit. Further, defendant does not own any intellectual property rights in the Hobo Ben toast that he reproduced in his book and recordings because, upon information and belief, there was no signed writing pursuant to the copyright code, transferring copyright ownership from the author of the Hobo Ben toast, whoever that might be, to defendant. In short, defendant simply lacks any ownership in the content of Hobo Ben and is attempting to misappropriate a work created by others. Even if defendant had valid copyright registrations for the Hobo Ben toast, he does not. Plaintiff's accused conduct does not infringe any of the exclusive rights afforded to a copyright owner under that copyright law. Pursuant to the foregoing, plaintiffs are entitled to judicial declaration of non-infringement for any purported copyrights of the Hobo Ben toast to preserve their rights defend their good names, and protect their business and business relationship. Defendant's attempt to profit on a work he never authored should be rejected. And that's what it comes down to. Demand letters are saying, I want a cut in the proceeds, I want credit, I want money. Defendant's attempt to profit on a work he never authored should be rejected. Prayer for relief. Plaintiffs request the following: for a judicial determination that the alleged copyright asserted by defendant in the Hobo Ben toast are invalid and unenforceable. For a judicial determination and declaration that plaintiffs have not infringed any purported copyright belonging to defendant. Prayer for relief of damages. I guess that's whatever the court will decide. Reasonable attorney fees and costs, that's rarely given, but they're asking for it. And for such relief as the court deems just and proper. And who is this? Wayne Dennison. And we know Wayne is very astute. He's a great expert witness lawyer. So I think he's dotted his I's, crossed his T's, and is very, very much. So we have a lot of people involved that will be pro hac vici if this does have to go to court, go to trial. And that's Johnny's attorneys. So let's take a look at this again. 17 U C101. Look at that. It's like it was listening to me. I want 106 though. Exclusive rights and copyright works. Subject to other sections. Exclusive rights and copyrighted works are subject to the following: to reproduce the copyright work in copies or phone records. The owner of the copyright under this title has the exclusive rights to do and to authorize any of the following. And they're saying that Bruce Jackson does not have that. So he doesn't have the rights to if anybody wants to copyright, to reproduce the copyright work in copies and phone records, to prepare derivative works based on the copyright work, to distribute copies or phone records of the copyrighted work to the public by sale or other transfer of ownership. Phono records. I'm thinking this is how old these are. Phono records, CDs, LPs, streaming music, phono records. In the case of literary, music, dramatic, and choreographic works, pantomimes, and motion pictures and other audiovisual works, to perform the copyright work publicly. The case of literary, musical, dramatic, and choreographic works, pantomimes, and pictorial, graphic, or sculpture works, including the individual images of a motion picture or other audiovisual work, to display the copyrighted work publicly. In the case of sound recordings, perform the copyright work publicly by means of a digital audio transmission. And Depp and Beck are clearly saying this is of the public domain. It's owned by no one. Who knows who wrote it? It was handed down by generations and generations and generations. And I think most people could think it's pretty cool that they're giving it a market. They're bringing it back out again. And that doesn't mean that they're the only ones. Other people could also record this because, again, they're claiming it's of the public domain. So this is just let's start. Hopefully this won't drag on for very long. And there's probably not going to be much of a settlement here because they want it to clear their name. So that's what I have for you today on Jeff Beck and Johnny Depp. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. I really need the help. And this was a quick one. I will put the links in the description as I always do. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.